I'm 81 years old. I spent 28 years running maximum security prisons. I've looked into the eyes of men who did things I can't describe on camera. Violent men, dangerous men. But the decision that haunts me most wasn't about punishment. It was about a piece of paper I signed in 1991. And what happened because of that signature took 22 years to reveal itself. I didn't plan on spending my life behind bars. Not like that anyway. I was 23 years old, fresh out of the army, no college degree, no connections. A friend told me the Bureau of Prisons was hiring, steady pay, government benefits, pension after 20 years. It sounded like a plan. I figured I'd do it for 5 years, maybe 10, save some money, figure out what I really wanted to do with my life. That was 1967. I walked into my first correctional facility in Leavenworth, Kansas, and something happened that I didn't expect. I was good at it, not good at being cruel, not good at intimidation, good at seeing people, seeing through the anger, through the masks, through the survival mechanisms that inmates develop to stay alive in a place designed to break them. Over the years I moved up, correctional officer, senior officer, case manager, associate warden, and finally in 1983 warden. I was 40 years old when they gave me my own facility, a maximum security federal penitentiary in the Midwest. 1,200 inmates, 400 staff, concrete and steel and razor wire stretching across 40 acres. Here's what people don't understand about running a prison. It's not about punishment. Punishment is what the courts decide. My job was order. My job was making sure that 1,200 dangerous men woke up every morning, went through their day, then went to sleep at night without killing each other or my staff. Rules were everything, not because I loved rules, because rules were the only thing standing between controlled tension and absolute chaos. Every exception I made, every rule I bent, created a crack, and cracks spread. I learned that the hard way more than once. In the fall of 1991, a case file landed on my desk. Inmate number 04732, Marcus Dwayne Thompson, 29 years old, serving 15 years for armed robbery, third offense. He'd been in the system since he was 17, juvenile detention, county jail, state prison, now federal. His file read like a roadmap of failure. Every institution had the same notes: intelligent but hostile, refuses to engage, high risk. I remember the first time I saw him in person. I was doing a routine walkthrough of the education wing. Most inmates ignored me or gave me that dead-eyed stare they perfect over years of incarceration. But Marcus was different. He was sitting in the back of a GED class and he wasn't staring at me. He was staring at the book in front of him. His lips were moving slightly. He was actually reading. That moment stuck with me. This is the part that mattered most. Because in 23 years of working in corrections, I had learned to spot two things: men who were pretending to change, and men who were quietly, desperately trying to become someone else. Marcus was the second kind. I could see it. I couldn't prove it, couldn't put it in a report. But I knew. 3 months later, Marcus submitted a request through his case manager. He wanted to enroll in a vocational training program. We had just started. Electrical work, basic certification. The program was new, underfunded, and had limited spots. Priority went to inmates with clean records and less than 5 years remaining on their sentence. Marcus had neither. His disciplinary record had 3 infractions in the past 2 years. Minor stuff, refusing a cell search, verbal altercation, but infractions nonetheless, and he had 8 years left. His case manager denied the request. Standard procedure. Marcus appealed to the associate warden. Denied again. Then he did something unusual. He wrote me a letter. Not a formal appeal. A letter, handwritten, 3 pages. I still remember the first line. It said, "Warden, I know you don't know me, but I need you to understand that I am not the man my file says I am. I am the man I am trying to become." Most wardens don't read inmate letters. We get hundreds. But something made me read that one. Maybe it was remembering him in that classroom. Maybe it was the handwriting, careful and deliberate, like every word cost him something. I read all 3 pages, and when I finished I did something I hadn't done in 8 years as warden. I requested a face-to-face meeting with an inmate. We sat across from each other in a small conference room, no glass between us, just a table. 2 chairs, a correctional officer outside the door. Marcus was calm, respectful, but not broken. That's what struck me. Most long-term inmates either become aggressive or they become hollow. Marcus was neither. He looked me in the eye and he spoke like a man who still believed his life could mean something. He told me about his childhood. Father gone before he was born, mother working 3 jobs. He was running with a crew by 13, first arrest at 15. He told me he wasn't making excuses. He made his choices, but he said something that I've never forgotten. He said, "I've been locked up for 12 years, Warden. And for the first 10 I was just serving time. But 2 years ago, something changed. I realized that when I get out I'll be 44 years old. And I can either walk out the same man who walked in, or I can walk out as someone who has something to offer. But I can't do it alone. I need a chance. Just one." I sat there for a long time after he finished. Here's what was going through my mind. If I approved his enrollment, I'd be breaking protocol. I'd be setting a precedent. Other inmates would hear about it. They'd expect the same treatment. My staff would question my judgment. And if Marcus failed, if he got into trouble, if he hurt someone, it would be on me. My signature. My responsibility. But if I said no, I'd be doing exactly what the system expected. Following the rules. Protecting myself, and I'd be telling a man who was trying to climb out of a hole that the ladder wasn't for people like him. I approved the request. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain it to my staff. I just signed the paper and put it back in the system. Marcus was enrolled in the electrical certification program, starting January 1992. I told myself I'd keep an eye on him, monitor his progress, make sure I hadn't made a mistake. But here's what I didn't anticipate. The moment I signed that paper, I lost control of the outcome. That's the thing about decisions. You make them in a single moment, but their consequences unfold over years, sometimes decades. And you don't get to steer them. You just have to live with wherever they go. For 18 months, things went well. Marcus completed the program, top of his class, no infractions. I allowed myself to feel something close to satisfaction, maybe even pride. Then in the summer of 1993, a new regional director came in. He was auditing facilities, looking for irregularities, and he found the paperwork for Marcus's enrollment. He called me into a meeting, asked me to explain why I had personally approved an inmate who didn't meet any of the program criteria. I told him the truth. I told him I saw something in that man. I told him rehabilitation was supposed to be part of our mission. He listened, and then he told me that effective leadership meant consistent enforcement of policy. That exceptions, no matter how well-intentioned, undermined institutional integrity. I wasn't fired, but I was passed over for a promotion I'd been working toward for years. Regional director. The job went to someone else. Someone who, as far as I know, never signed a single paper that broke protocol. I stayed warden for another 12 years. Retired in 2005, and for all that time I carried that decision with me. Not as regret exactly, but as a question. Was it worth it? Marcus was released in 1999. I wasn't there. Wardens don't attend releases. I heard through the grapevine that he walked out, got picked up by a cousin, and disappeared into the civilian world. After that, nothing. No updates. No news. The system doesn't track success stories. It only tracks failures. If Marcus had committed another crime, I would have heard about it. But silence could mean anything. He could be living a quiet life. He could be dead. He could be back in a state facility somewhere that didn't connect to our records. For years I wondered, did I actually help him, or did I just risk my career for a man who went right back to where he started? I had no way of knowing, and that uncertainty, that not knowing, it's harder than you might think. When you make a sacrifice for something, you want to know it mattered. You want confirmation. Closure. I had neither. In 2013, I was 70 years old. Retired for 8 years, living in Arizona with my wife. One afternoon I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice on the other end. He said, "Is this Warden Harold Mitchell?" Nobody had called me Warden in years. I said yes, and then he said, "Sir, this is Marcus Thompson. I don't know if you remember me." I couldn't speak for a moment. Then I said, "I remember you, Marcus. I remember the letter." He told me why he was calling. He said he'd spent the last 14 years building a life. After his release, he used his electrical certification to get a job with a contractor in Ohio. Worked his way up, foreman within 5 years. Then he started his own company, small at first, then bigger. By 2013, he employed 23 people. 12 of them were ex-convicts he'd hired specifically because no one else would. But that wasn't why he called. He called because 6 months earlier his 22-year-old son had gotten into trouble. Drugs, bad crowd, facing charges that could have sent him to prison. Marcus said he sat his son down and told him the story of how a warden he'd never met had signed a piece of paper that changed the entire direction of his life. He told his son that someone had believed in him when there was no logical reason to, and that he was going to do the same thing for his son. He said, "Warden, my son is in treatment now. He's clean. He's enrolled in community college, and I wanted you to know that none of it would exist if you hadn't signed that paper. You didn't just change my life, you changed my family's life, my employees' lives, their families' lives. I needed you to know that." I sat in my kitchen in Arizona, and I cried. My wife came in and asked what was wrong. I couldn't explain it. How do you explain to someone that a decision you made 22 years ago, a decision you spent decades questioning, had just been answered? Here's what I learned, and I need you to hear this, because it might be the most important thing I've ever understood. Rules protect systems. I still believe that. I spent 28 years enforcing rules, and I know they matter. But systems exist to serve people, not the other way around. And sometimes, protecting the system means failing the person standing in front of you. Sometimes, the most important thing you can do is recognize that a rule was written for the average case, and the person in front of you is not average. They are specific, they are human, and they need you to see them. I'm not saying break rules carelessly. I'm not saying ignore policy because it's inconvenient. I'm saying be willing to pay a price for the decisions you believe in. I lost a promotion because I signed that paper. I spent 22 years not knowing if it mattered. That was the cost, and I would pay it again. Because here's the truth. You will make decisions in your life that the system doesn't support. Decisions that your colleagues won't understand. Decisions that might cost you something, and you won't know for years, maybe ever, whether they were right. That uncertainty is the price of acting on your convictions, instead of just following the safe path. But every now and then the phone rings, and someone tells you that the risk you took rippled outward in ways you never could have imagined. And in that moment, every question, every doubt, every sleepless night becomes worth it. I'm 81 years old. I've made thousands of decisions in my life. Most of them I don't remember, but I remember Marcus. I remember that letter. I remember the weight of the pen in my hand when I signed that paper, and I remember the sound of his voice on the phone 22 years later, telling me it mattered. So here's my question for you. Is there someone in your life right now who needs you to see them? Not as a category, not as a risk, not as a file or a label or a statistic, but as a human being who is trying to become something more than their past. Because if there is, I'm asking you to consider taking the chance. Sign the paper, make the call, open the door. You might pay a price for it. You might spend years wondering if it was worth it. But you might also get a phone call someday that changes everything. If the story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever taken a chance on someone when the rules said you shouldn't, tell me about it in the comments. I'd like to know I'm not the only one. Subscribe to this channel. I have more stories to tell. And at 81, I'm not sure how many more chances I'll get to tell them.